And welcome for the first time in 6 years. We're back. It's AFT Buzz, and we're talking some football. Alongside me, I have Matthew Jacobson from Jacobson Sportsnet. How are you doing, Matt?
I mean, I get to talk arena football again for the first time in over a year. I'm doing pretty good. How you doing, buddy?
It's going well. Keeping busy myself, and looking forward to this season.
And you guys are going to get pretty busy too because the Fisher's Freight kick off this upcoming weekend. So you're going to have your hands full, aren't you?
Yep, they're 1-1 on the season so far, and they host obviously a very well-known and pretty respected, dominant on the field team in the Arizona Rattlers. What can you tell us about Arizona's past matchup, Matt?
Well, because this week they hosted San Diego to open up their season, and these two teams don't like each other, especially with the context that they've essentially played three consecutive games to end last year, the postseason game last year, and then this game. And the Rattlers obviously are kind of known for running up the score and being a very offensively dominant team. It really stuck out to me that this team was so good defensively as well. They've turned over 75% of their roster is the exact number they gave in the press conference, but it's pretty much, I think, three or four guys returning. Brand new quarterback, essentially a brand new offense, a lot more deep balls, a lot more deep shots in the last few years. Usually they tend to have more of a mobile quarterback. Even Dalton Snead, who could hit a deep ball, would also tuck and run quite a bit. And that secondary, it was kind of a meme. It was kind of a joke among anyone who actually followed the Rattlers. Let's just say I got into it in 2019. Start there. If the opposing team was getting a deep shot, it's going in the end zone because the secondary just couldn't keep up. The secondary is completely different now, and that was the goal. Coach Guy mentioned in the press conference after the game that they wanted a whole new defense. They wanted to bring in playmakers, people that were known for forcing turnovers, and so far, even though the game wasn't perfect, I don't really know how much better they could have been in a game like that.
Yeah, and obviously Arizona in the Western Conference, Fishers in the Eastern Conference. And with that matchup, I mean, you look at Fishers on the season, 1-1. They beat the Quad Cities Steamwheelers 45-27, and then they go to Green Bay, lose there 51-42. So they've been able to put up over 100 points basically, or just around there in their two games. But the defense seems to maybe be a bit of an issue. I mean, as far as putting up or letting the defensive quads or the offensive Quad City score 27 and then letting Green Bay score 51. So, from an Arizona standpoint, obviously Arizona has the high octane offense. What does Fishers need to do to slow down this Arizona team?
I mean, score often, score early. So it's very interesting. So Max Myler, the very first offensive possession as an Arizona Rattler, it's a 32-yard touchdown to Arlen Bruce, and then the very next offensive possession, it's an interception. It's going the other way. I think he threw a second interception that was called back in the third quarter. It was later on in the game, but he only officially has the one interception. So there's clearly a potential weakness that could be exploited. Obviously, the Rattlers' perspective, they're going to want to tighten that up. The coach guy mentioned now they have some film to look at,
Mhm.
but they were heavily favoring that deep ball quite a bit. And Max is someone that it looks like he's going to take a lot of deep shots. And I think Coach Guy kind of joked about they're playing man, and he knows how to beat man, so probably go zone coverage, zone D.
And with that, I mean, you look at just the league as a whole, pretty the parities. Obviously, it's early, but it's not bad so far. I mean, Green Bay at the top of the East, 1-0. Fishers, who we're previewing, playing Arizona next weekend, 1-1. Quad City, they've already beat, also 1-1. Iowa, that beloved franchise in the league that is kind of seems like falling off. Seems like their glory days are maybe past them. They're 0-1. And you look at the Western Conference, Arizona obviously 1-0, San Diego 1-1, and Northern Arizona 0-1. So it's kind of a uncertain future right now, and with a lot of teams not having played yet. When you see the IFL, what do you see as far as maybe this season? Who's going to be the dominant team? I think Arizona's a favorite, and Green Bay seems to be much better these days, past couple seasons. I feel like Fishers is maybe that sleeper team. Dixie Wooten there, and the fan base there. The team's getting better. It seems like. So when you predict how this season's going to go, what do you see shaking out in the end?
Well, I'll go ahead and give some context first. I cover the Rattlers, via
Good.
YouTube, and then for your outlet starting in 2023, so from 2019 to the very first game of 2025. So I've basically been out of it for about a year. But one
Mhm.
thing I've learned, especially covering the indoor game as much as I have, as well as college football over the last couple of years, is previous seasons aren't even indicators anymore. Like, yes, you have teams like the Rattlers, and before they had to go on hiatus, Sioux Falls tended to be good year after year. But I also remember the days when San Diego was a joke in this league. I
Yeah,
remember
same.
Tucson being a joke in this league. Northern Arizona went from worst to first year over year. They were a strong playoff team for I think a year after that, and then they haven't been able to win very much after. And I want to use a Coach Guy quote from last night. It's a 1 year league, and I'm noticing that these brand names don't seem to matter anymore. It seems to matter how you are managing your teams. Because even I think 2019 when I was getting into it, I forget which year, but Green Bay, I remember them mostly being terrible. And look at they were runners up last year and 1-0 so far. And obviously we're in week 3, and it's a very weird rollout how few teams have played. I think
Yeah.
Tucson's playing their opener today or tonight. I think it's Sunday Night Football they're doing, or I don't know if they could use that moniker, but I think they're playing tonight. But the teams that have played so far, no one is, especially I'm heavily looking at the teams that have played 2 games, because obviously if you've played one, it's unfair to make the comparison. But no one is, you know, more than a game above 500 or below very, very
Mhm.
early. And considering how even the last couple of years, Coach Guy kept talking about how the league wants more and more parity and all the rules they keep putting for parity, I think the IFL has a product that wants to be as balanced as possible.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if previous seasons you can really go off of, unless you have those specific examples like the Rattlers that always try to be competitive, or it seems like San Diego the last couple of years because they won the IFL championship. What was it 3 years ago? Because Dalton Sneed was their quarterback. Green Bay making it like these teams can go through stretches where they're a joke, and then all of a sudden they're competitive again. So I don't think that, especially 3 weeks in, we can even begin to make a real preview yet. But I mean, you haven't seen like Tulsa be really competitive this year.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I mean, you look at Tulsa with their coaching staff. I mean, Billy back out there helping run the show. I would definitely keep an eye on them. I mean, Billy has a winning tradition. Even as a assistant coach, that guy can go to a team and they start winning. And then there's also a sleeper team I think that we got to talk about also in the Eastern Conference, Orlando. That market has always had a team. It's usually been the Predators. Now you have a new brand in there. It'll be interesting to see how the fans are receptive to that. The Massachusetts Pirates obviously moved down there this past offseason, calling the Kia Center home. They won the league championship not too long ago in Massachusetts. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think they'll get good support from that Predators fan base? And do you think that they are going to continue their winning ways?
I don't really know how to answer that question because so many things can change with the relocation.
Yeah.
And, you know, obviously, I would say right now, the Predators fans might feel very slighted, and they might be very slow to embrace the Pirates. And if that's the approach, I wouldn't even blame them because they kind of came back and then folded within 2 years, and there
Mm-hmm.
was a lot of drama behind it, and it was very public. And it's very hard to try to pick, but considering, I brought it up. I wanted to talk with you about it. I wanted to talk about the week 1 coaches poll. This was, going into week 1. It's a couple of weeks old now, but like you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned, the Pirates are at number 4 in this ranking. Nighthawks right behind them, which Vegas has been very successful the last couple of years, with the Rattlers behind them and so on and so forth. And the top 3 teams being Green Bay, Fishers, and San Diego for the coaching polls. I think a lot of people are looking at Orlando with high expectations, higher
Yeah.
hopes, and I really want to see how I want to see what product they put on the field because obviously Massachusetts were a winning organization, and as someone who covered the Rattlers, there was a nice little East-West rivalry between those two teams, and it's really fun, to see that play out. But my last memory of them was the 2024 championship, where it was a very one-sided game, and then now they're moving out to a whole new market, potentially new people involved. I really want to see week one or their first game. I want to see how they come out and play.
Yeah, and I think they do things the right way, but like you said, a relocation, the fan support, and the fan support in Massachusetts also seem to always struggle. Their field never seemed full, but then you have Jacksonville, which has been an arena football juggernaut, and I mean, multiple leagues, Arena Football League, I mean, the National Arena League, the IFL now. So they have consistency, and I think Jacksonville is always someone that teams need to, that fans should look for. And I mean, not just the sport of arena football too. I think you touched on earlier, the IFL wants to be one of the premier league out there. I mean, their website calls them the Major League of Indoor Football, and then you look at honestly, I have two other tabs open here, the National Arena League or Football One. They've survived, but man, the turnover, the teams in those leagues, there's more new teams than there are teams from past seasons. Because honestly, the IFL is swooping people up, or t teams are flipping between the AF1 or the NAL. I mean, I think it also just goes to show that the IFL is maybe the premier product. I'm not bashing the other two at all whatsoever. I think the AF1 has legitimate backing, and I think the Cats moving to Clarksville was a no-brainer. I wish they would have kept that branding, and they're still going to technically go by the Nashville Cats. But I've noticed in a lot of their branding these days, they have taken Nashville out of the name because they've moved about 45 minutes north. And I've been to that venue. I covered a Cats game there. I think it's perfect, a perfect place for them to play. It's just a shame they could never work out things in Nashville. But then you look at the National Arena League, there really isn't any team from the past few seasons. I mean, it's kind of the old CIF now, plus some new expansion teams. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I think the leadership is better than the CIF was. And if any execs listen to this, I'm just stating how the NAL is not really falling off a cliff. They've had consistent success on the field. The parity's been solid, and the front office seems solid there now. I know they kind of had a rough first few years, but I think this is really a year that across the sport fans should be excited about, and those are the three teams or the three leagues to focus on. But I kind of tongue in cheek made a pun earlier, using the word juggernaut with Arizona and stuff, and just the IFL. I think there's also a team that uses that is going to use that name in a new up and coming league. I mean, the Pennsylvania Benjamins, former NAL, and I think it was in the NAL, but at least the AAL. I mean, um, I think that's going to be a very interesting league to look at with the International Arena League because I know the Pennsylvania Benjamins will do everything right. Knowing that the West Virginia Rough Riders had that ownership group before, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. What are we looking at in the Arizona market, Matt? Because I mean, we have the Sugar Skulls, the Wranglers, the Rattlers, and now we have a team in Mullet Arena. So, what do you think is gonna? What do you think that does to the competition there? How do you think the Valley is reciprocated there?
It's very interesting, and I need to do a 30 for 30 documentary if I ever get talented enough, because the Arizona market is, especially with the IFL having three teams. So you have your Southern market team with the Sugar Skulls, your Northern market team with the Wranglers, which they seem to love their team up there. Then of course the Rattlers have been dominant for longer than I've been alive.
Yeah.
But you've also had a NAL team try to move out here that a lot of the updates kind of died, and we don't know what's happening with that. You had an AF1 team that I think they were trying to get in with the original like AFL reboot, and they tried to get in again through AF1 with the Bandits. That I can tell you right now, it's not even a secret because obviously they had it in their branding. They just never solidified it. And I think the reporting at the time, I think it was outside the wall or whoever. No disrespect. I'm old and
Yeah,
it's very hard to remember to remember individuals.
yeah.
But uh, the Bandits never got the arena deposit done. So you had one team that was supposed to launch last year and technically the year before, but realistically last year that couldn't get the job done at Mullet. I would imagine when the NAL leaks for the Horsemen came out, I assume Mullet would have been one of the top two venues because the NAL and arena football as a whole keeps targeting buildings that are under 10K. And while I have a lot of opinions on it. I also understand sometimes there's business aspects that are above my head. So there's kind of been this competition in the market, some failures to launch, and then out of nowhere, the IAL actually presumably getting the deposit. I've heard nothing negative so far through the organization or through the arena. Nothing to suggest that there's no payments going through. Everything seems fine, except for social media strategies seem to be delayed. But right now, the Arizona market is prime for competition, and I'll openly state right now, I was wrong when it came to the Rattlers going to Glendale. Glendale is the football home of the state. It feels obviously you have the Sun Devils in Tempe, and this was before that 2024 run because the Rattlers made their West Valley debut in
Yeah.
24. You have the Cardinals out there. People are willing to make that trip once a week, and Cardinals play on Sunday. Their Thursday night games have lower attendance usually, but people are willing to make the trip once a week. It's only 8 games, and the Rattlers are a winning product. I didn't think there'd be, as much, you know, fan outcry, and
Hmm.
especially just kind of paying attention to the different fan groups. And they're. I know the team officially reported that they had highest season ticket renewals. I'm not going to comment on that because I don't have access to numbers. They don't
Right.
they don't give us numbers on that. So you kind of have to just take them at their word. But I was wrong that it wasn't going to have any effect. And considering that, and the Rattlers have, after this season, I think it's 2 more years on that lease. You look at it like this is the perfect time if somebody wanted to come into this market and compete. And the Juggernauts right now, they went to the East Valley. They're at Mullet Arena. Say what you will, but I can tell you right now, the Coyotes had success out there. Even just from the advertiser perspective, people didn't value them in Glendale, and that's a top four sport. That is a top four sporting organization, and advertisers did not see value advertising with them in Glendale, but saw value in partnering with them in Tempe. And that's not even talking about the horrific ownership, the terrible management, the refusing to pay bills. Like that was a real story when
Yep.
when Alex Morello came in. Like that was a confirmed thing. Even I heard multiple people in the building. He just stopped paying bills, and an exact quote that went around was, "I didn't sign that contract." Like that was a real thing that happened, and they still saw advertising opportunities. So I think the Juggernauts are trying to play it smart here, and if they can put a good quality product out there, and I'm not going to attribute it to the Juggernauts because I think that'd be way too early to say something like this. But the vibe was totally different for the home opener this year for the Rattlers than last year. I think the Rattlers are embracing competition. I think this market might actually have a very, very good season to look ahead to. But that's also getting a little ahead of myself because we haven't even seen the product for the Juggernauts. But they got Jamal Miles, a legend out here, for the Rattlers and for ASU as their OC. They got Jay Allen as their head coach, a couple of former Rattlers and either Wranglers or Sugar Skulls talent. Juju Augustine, Rasheed Hodge. I think Rasheed also went to U of A. So there's a lot of appealing to this community that it seems the Juggernauts are doing, and a lot of the right things are being said. And I've been in contact with quite a bit of people. I was there for their opening press conference. Hopefully, some more media opportunities coming up here soon. Not to tease too much, but
Right.
everyone is saying the right things. I
And
want to see kickoff.
yeah, and that's the thing is teams will announce their intentions and then they'll go on a hiatus or something. I mean, you look at the NAL, the Idaho Horsemen. Obviously, it was leaked that they were going to moved to Arizona, and since then that was taken off the league store or wherever it was being sold, and now they're on a hiatus till 2027. But then staying in the IFL though, we wanted to. I want to discuss this one team or more so the venue that now has two arena football teams. You might know where I'm going with this. One in the
San Diego.
IFL and one in AF1. Or yeah, in the AF1. And so yeah, the Oceanside Bombers in the AF1, which has been a pretty reputable league, some expansion teams here and there, um, like obviously Nashville moving up to Clarksville, but then they're also sharing the venue with the San Diego Strike Force of the IFL. How do you think that support's going to go? Where do you think that's going to go? Is it going to end with San Diego's team staying in there, or does Oceanside coexist long term?
I'm not gonna lie, Derek. I have no idea how to answer that, and I will try to elaborate. But
Yeah.
like, I look at this situation. Any sources obviously are not going to be mentioned, but I've heard some very conflicting things. I've heard anywhere from they're supposed to share a field to now they have their own field, and there was a lot of hey, this is supposed to be announced earlier, but the announcement got delayed, allegedly. So like there's a lot of it feels like trying to put it together at the last minute, and I don't know how that's going to benefit them in the long run. And considering how the strike force for whatever issues you've heard over time. Like I said, I know that they uh, weren't the best for a little bit. Oh, I also wanted to apologize. I confused San Diego for Bay Area earlier in the episode with Dalton Sneed. I wanted to apologize for that. So, again, old. Sometimes you mix up details, but I know regardless of any faults of San Diego, they've still been there longer. They still are going to have their fan support. I know the AF1 wants to get into more markets. I know that would be a huge market for them to get into.
Hmm.
I don't know if it's the right move to go into a market that currently has an IFL team. I think they should have gone to a market that was abandoned. I think I know Bay Area ceased operations. I think a year ago.
Right.
Maybe they could have tried to do something with was it the Sabercats? I know the Sabercats back in the day.
Yep.
I know rents are high. I'm not the business guy, but there's other markets that maybe they could have done something. I know it's a building issue, but with Sioux Falls, maybe they could have tried to target something over there. I think it's an interesting strategy. As someone who likes drama, it's mildly funny, but it's also like I don't know what it actually does, but I'm also not ingrained in that market. Maybe San Diego is leaving themselves wide open for competition. Like, there's a competition out here with the Rattlers moving out west. It's entirely possible that it could be a very similar situation. It's just weird when they play in the same building to try to draw the parallels, especially
Yeah.
with my very limited knowledge on the market. I think it's very interesting, and I don't know what the AF I don't know what AF1 is doing. I find myself constantly confused by AF1, and I know arena leagues in general are very, look at the NAL, dude. We've had how many teams? Like, remember when I was doing individual videos for you, taking your
Yeah.
articles, making them into videos. How many teams would constantly move leagues, or you have an NAL champion go to a different league in a different year? It feels like retention seems to be one of the issues, and regardless of why the retention is an issue, whether it's an unviable market or whatever. Again, I'm not a business guy. It's
Hmm.
just in a scenario like that, and again, it's not shade at the NAL. It's just from a perspective of someone who doesn't have a team in the NAL. It's hard to keep up. I don't know what AF1 is doing,
Right.
like from that perspective.
It'll be a truly interesting season. I mean, just to kind of note some things off right now, the NAL seems to be pretty competitive overall. Pueblo, an expansion team, 4-0 to start the year. Salina, which has gone from the CIF, I mean, to the AF1, now to the NAL, and stayed competitive throughout those three leagues. They're 3-0. Southwest Kansas Storm, they're 2-0. Then the rest of the league's pretty mid or two winless teams. The Omaha Beef 0-3, which is odd. They're usually a contender, so we'll have to monitor that situation. And then as far as AF1 goes, the new season kicks off Saturday, April 11th, as the new changed league Minnesota Monsters, who are the Duluth Harbor Monsters. They were in the Arena League, joined the AF1, and they'll travel to Albany to take on a juggernaut, a dynasty title contender, the Albany Firebirds. And then the next day, we have that is the Bombers, who share the arena with San Diego. They'll host the Beaumont Renegades, who won the NAL. And so, like you're saying, the retention is not there. You have a Northwest battle, the Oregon Lightning. They'll go up to Everett, Washington, play the Washington Wolfpack, and you'll have two new teams, the Arsenal of Michigan, playing the Kentucky Barrels, as in whiskey barrels. So it'll be interesting to see how that league unfolds this year. But definitely something to keep an eye on there. Matt, do you have any closing thoughts?
I mean, I have one more IFL related thing after
Yep,
this because we have some scoring updates.
sure.
But the Kentucky Barrels are such an interesting situation. If I ever actually get the finances to travel to cover some arena football, the one team that's like in any league that if I could go and cover, it'd be Kentucky. I really want to see I feel like who they have in place are there for all the right reasons. And kind of like with the Juggernauts, they're saying a lot of the right things from my perspective. And I really want to see what they do there.
Yeah, it'll be definitely something really, really interesting. And we are running out of time. About 10 minutes left to finish this up. But I think it's going to be an exciting season. I'm definitely going to try to shift my schedule around to try to get out to Fishers a little bit this season. I'm going to hopefully get out there next Sunday, but outside of that, to be determined. But definitely something that I think we can somewhere that we can use this show, and looking forward to what we're able to bring the fans as the season goes on.
I mean, I'm excited to get to talk arena football again. And the IFL, or I guess Major League of Indoor Football, I
Yep.
really wish they'd update their standings a little better. Because New Mexico played Orlando and beat them 38-34 on the 22nd. And Jacksonville beat Northern Arizona. Uh, I think, yeah, they beat them last night. And then scoring updates for Sunday. Tulsa's up 3-0 on San Antonio. And then it's later on tonight, it's Vegas at Tucson. So a lot of things are happening in the IFL. I just wish they'd update the website a little more. But
Yeah.
that's also why while we're recording and preparing, you double check and take a look at notes. But was there any time to give some let's just say closing thoughts on that Rattlers San Diego matchup, or do you have any last closing topics?
I think we can dive right into that. We have about 8 minutes left, and I think Arizona is the perfect topic as they'll roll into Fishers. Those I think that's our focus this episode since I'm hoping to go out there Sunday. So, I mean, Fishers obviously they're on a bye, so there's not much to talk about on that end, but we'll see what happens. As far as Arizona, feel free.
Yeah, so like I said, Max Myler, that first offensive possession to Arlen Bruce, and the next offensive possession he had a interception. But the Rattlers win this game 49-27. Noted Arizona Coyotes fan and former Rattlers kicker Ernesto Lacayo missed 1 point after. That it was deemed that it went off, I think, the bottom bar and out. It went
Mhm.
off the bar and out. So the score looks a little more one-sided than it actually was. San Diego pressured quite a bit, but the Rattlers, it's a possession-based game,
Yeah.
kept scoring, and especially over the air was massive, but they also weren't afraid to run it. And Nate Davis, who's a very solid quarterback, only threw 160 yards. He was 14 for 26, two touchdowns, two interceptions. And Max Myler on the other side of that, if that one interception, would have gone through, it looks slightly worse, but 11 for 18, 196, three touchdowns and interception. They really weren't that far off passing wise when you really break it down. And Nate added another rushing touchdown, but Max had two rushing touchdowns and 37 yards. So again, like all it takes is like one different play, and either it looks a lot better or it looks a little worse, or even just a call can make one come back. And it's very weird that the Rattlers receiving, you wouldn't expect this receiving core to be dominant. Like obviously Corey Reed Jr. has a history in this league of being very good. But Trey Odom's Dukes played really well, three receptions, 59 yards, touchdown. Although I thought he had two touchdowns. Arlen Bruce played pretty well, had 69 yards and a
Mhm.
touchdown. I think this offense is very interesting. And they also a couple other little things I wanted to look at. Their rushing attempts were 12 to 11, so San Diego's only one behind. But their passing attempts 22, somehow less than San Diego, who had 27. But it never felt like that. Like
Right.
it felt like the Rattlers were trying to play. I don't want to say air raid because it's so overused to call an offense air raid, but
Hmm.
what we'll call like diet air raid is kind of what it felt like. But they didn't take as many shots as San Diego, so it's very weird. Little things like that. And then penalties killed them a little bit. And that new rule of if you get unsportsmanlike, you have to sit out for a play. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's interesting. I think that's also good, though. I mean, we've seen a lot of jawing in arena football these days. I mean, I think it was maybe this season. I don't know if it was preseason, regular season, but I mean, there was a borderline brawl. And so I think that's good because it can help players to cool their tempers. So I think that's a move by the league to say, hey, we don't want any of this nonsense going on. We want serious ball. We want to have games. We don't want fights. We want a good game for the fans. We don't want drama. So I think we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I actually I like it. I,
Yeah,
I
same.
I don't know if they're doing like a yellow card, red card system. I've been covering some soccer recently, but I don't know if they're trying to adopt like a pseudo yellow card, red card system. But yeah, cooling the players off. I mean, we saw with the old Rattlers Pirates rivalries and some unfortunate events where players go into the stands and obviously like I said a lot of jawing, a couple borderline fights. I think it's also good to just let someone chill out for a play.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you just need to reset real quick, and I think if that helps avoid incidents like that, you also have less players getting suspended, less players getting hurt, less black marks on the league. Where yeah, it looks bad when you have a fan brawl. So or going into the stands. So I think it's an interesting rule. I think I like it.
Yeah, I think it'll definitely help. And I think even the Orlando relocation will help rivalries too. So I think you're going to have tempers and stuff, but I think this is a good disciplinary rule. And I like where the IFL is headed. And I think the AF1 has some questions to answer, but I like where they're headed. I mean, my main question there is, can Oceanside survive with the rumors that you've heard and just playing in the same venue as San Diego? So, but outside of that, I think they need to get the fan support up a little bit. I've noticed Everett's fan base is pretty thin at times. Oregon's pretty interesting in the way they have things set up there, but I think the arena football's in a good place, and I think even the NAL is in a good spot as kind of maybe a mid lower tier league, not like low, but kind of maybe the third tier league of the three that we're focusing on here, kind of right alongside AF1. And I think one of the big things for AF1 moving Nashville to Clarksville was they did not have the capability to do video streams in Nashville at the venue they played at. That venue is their older venue in town, and so I think this was more of a technological relocation, and also because when I did cover the one game, it was Military Appreciation Day since Fort Campbell's right there. They got great attendance, so I think the leagues are in a great spot where they're at, and it's going to be a fun watch this season.
I think my only concern is the trend that I've seen of there being building issues, of there
Yeah.
being whether rents going up, whether teams can't get lease agreements, whether you're going into smaller buildings. That's the only real concern I have. But product wise, I think these leagues are all looking pretty good and keeping as much parity as possible. And yeah, also I'm surprised that Omaha's 0-3. Those are my closing thoughts.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on today, and I look forward to next episode, whether that is next Sunday or maybe Monday or something. We'll figure that out since I'll be in the Fishers or Indianapolis area on Sunday. We'll see what happens. But I appreciate you coming on, and we'll catch some good football over the next week.